Sherrone Moore suspended for Michigan, and there are a couple of things I can't believe.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Utah added one of my favorite wide receivers in the portal. Georgia's got the number one quarterback in the class of 2026. All of that on today's show and more. And it's brought to you by FanDuel, of course. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, the news broke yesterday. Sherrone Moore is missing 2 games in 2025 for something that happened 2 seasons ago. All right. I have a second thought that is really going overlooked in this whole situation. My first thought, though, was how are we still doing this? How are we still? I am 100% in the camp of Michigan should face repercussions, maybe some recruiting sanctions or something. Like, they crossed the line. They're not the only ones going out and, as the Netflix documentary pointed out, sign stealing, legal. They took it to another level, okay? Crossed the line. I think everybody understands that. I don't know if everyone agrees with that particular statement. That's the way that I see it. So punishment for Michigan in some capacity is warranted. How many times is it going to happen? Harbaugh was suspended in the year they won the national championship. Sherrone Moore has been suspended before. Now it's a self-imposed suspension for 2 games this year. Like, doesn't this feel like a point in time where I think most people will look at it, and I'm sure some of you out there will wonder, Spencer, why are you even talking about this? Well, because the story won't go away. That's the answer. It just keeps coming back. I'm wondering when we're going to stop. When are we just going to say, you know what? Everything that should be doled out punishment-wise, that's happened. And everything that we need to know, we know, and the facts have been there and all that sort of stuff. I don't think Michigan should have had their national championship stripped away. There are some people that feel that way. I do think punishments are warranted, but they've already happened. The NCAA was just sitting around going, what do we even do here anymore? I mean, we don't have authority on a lot of things, but hey, remember that time before all these lawsuits came out? We were doing Michigan. Let's put our foot down. Like, I don't know if this is a desperate power grab from the NCAA to try to climb their way back into relevance in college football. I don't know. This feels like the only thing the NCAA ever really does when it comes to college football is make investigations. And I'm not saying they are all unwarranted or that this one never was. But at some point, it's not going to happen, right? Like, Michigan's coach isn't going to be suspended on a year-by-year basis, right? We're not going to just do this every single year, season after season. So that's the first thing I can't believe. And there are still 2 more things. The second one is that this is a self-imposed sanction from Michigan as a result of some deleted text messages. And again, Sherrone Moore has been suspended before. Now he's going to be suspended again. Okay, how in the world, even though it appears Michigan's cooperating with the investigation, are they allowed to choose which games he's suspended for? How does that work? What NCAA bylaw comes about and allows for Michigan to say, yeah, well, we don't need him there for this game or that game, so those are the games that he's going to be suspended before. We're going to self-impose. I think it's a smart move on Michigan's part to have the self-imposed component because it projects an image of we're not trying to hide anything. We're trying to be very open and honest with the investigation. And, yep, some things went down and that wasn't totally right. But they're trying to get it behind them. I don't know if they're ever going to be allowed to do that. So that's the second thing is whenever I screwed up as a kid, I didn't get to pick my own punishment. My parents told me, hey, no TV. Hey, you're not going out or doing this, that, and the other thing, or what have you. Or any other situation. Kid gets into a fight at school. Is he picking how long he's suspended from school, or is he going to the principal's office and the principal's telling him, yeah, you're suspended from school for a week. Good luck keeping up with all your classes and such. Like, that part was crazy to me. Then, piggybacking off of that, the third thing, I'm going to struggle to believe this for the next several weeks. I guess if you had to serve it consecutively, this would be the spot. But the disrespect given to Nebraska is crazy, because that's one of the games Sherrone Moore is not going to coach. It's the Central Michigan, Nebraska back-to-back. If I were Matt Rule, and there was probably not a better spot elsewhere on the schedule, I need to stop hitting my hand on my desk. I fully agree. You don't need to tell me in the comment section. But I don't know that there's another spot on the schedule, because they play Oklahoma week 2. And because after that point, you're in Big Ten conference play, so you're only playing Big Ten teams. The fact that Nebraska, at Nebraska, is one of the games where Sherrone Moore won't be there, that's the spot. They self-imposed and decided, don't need the head coach for these 2 games. Central Michigan, I understand. But I guess it had to be back-to-back. You couldn't have done the first game, which won't be a problem, and then have him coach the Oklahoma game and then not the Central Michigan game, because apparently Michigan was in charge. Apparently Michigan was out there calling the shots, saying we're going to have our coach for this game, but not for those 2 games, but we'll have him for all the other ones. And Sherrone Moore has ties to Oklahoma, of course, and so he wanted to coach the game, I guess, or that's a big game. I don't know, but if I'm Matt Rule over at Nebraska, I am digging deep into the archives of my brain to figure out how I can turn this into a motivational tick for my locker room. Hey, they chose the games where they weren't going to have their head coach, and they chose you on your home field. I'd rather have my head coach than not. Sherrone Moore, famously as an interim, did very well when Harbaugh was suspended, most notably in the Penn State game. The Wolverines will, of course, look to replicate that success. Because going to Nebraska, I don't think that's a game Michigan can just roll up and win. I don't think they can show up and just out-talent Nebraska inherently. I don't think they can show up and just out-coach Nebraska. Dylan Rayola's in his second year. Matt Rule's there for another season. I'm just throwing it out there. I would 100% take that and play an Uno reverse card if I were Matt Rule and flip it around on its head and let Michigan know they made a mistake. That's how I'd approach it. We'll see what they wind up doing. But the story that just keeps on coming back. Are more sanctions coming down? I don't know. Taking a couple scholarships away or recruiting sanctions or something like that. Yeah, that can be warranted. But I think I speak for more than a couple of people when I say, can we wrap this up and just move on with the sport so it stops popping up every year? Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know in the comments below. Utah, Big 12 title contender, right? I mean, they'd like to be. They lost who was going to be their top pass catcher, and they just found a guy who might be their number 1 receiver. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot like Aaron Gordon had or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Plus, you can get $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. What wouldn't that make more exciting? I think that's just a blanket across the board, it's going to make it better, whatever that is. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Does Utah have a game changer in Tobias Merriweather at wide receiver? JT Wistrcill of Locked On Utes is here to discuss that very question with me. I like this guy when he went into the portal. JT, I like this move for Utah a lot. Wide receivers, always a big question. They had a transfer departure in this receiver room. How big of a pickup is this to you, host of Locked On Utes?
It's big. Utah absolutely needed a wide receiver one, especially with their projected wide receiver one, Zacharias Williams. We're not doing a ton last season, having one good game to end the year, then a good spring ball. Then all of a sudden he's in the portal and at USC now. So you felt like you needed another guy to add, especially with their other wide receiver. They got to transfer. Utah State's Otto Tia came in. He was just okay in the spring game, adding up and down spring ball. So this was clearly the biggest need on this roster. And Spencer, for them to land a guy like this, who was a wide receiver that a lot of other people were after too, and to get into a place like Utah, that's a big news for this team. He definitely comes with some questions. He has yet to put all the pieces together. Didn't work out at Notre Dame, injured last year at Cal, but the potential is there. 6'5". If he can stay healthy and cut down on some of the inconsistencies and drops that plagued him while he was with the Irish, this guy could not just be one of the best receivers that Utah's had in a little bit, but I generally think he's got the potential to be one of the best receivers in the Big 12 this year, which is massive when, as you mentioned, you look at the history of Utah receivers in recent memory. Not great, Bob.
No, it has not been a rolling conclave of high-end receiver outputs. I don't think he comes in and goes for 1,000 yards, JT. No. It's not the way Utah plays football, but they don't need him to do that. I think that's a little bit of the advantage. If he had gone to, what's a good example? Like if he'd gone to Washington State, for instance, a pass-happy offense in the last several years. They have a new coaching staff there, of course. But if he was going there expected to be wide receiver one, I'd wonder, is that the best move? Maybe it's the best move available, but I don't know that it's the perfect situation. But for a guy who, as he said, hasn't really put it all together and doesn't come in with, a reputation like Trevor Pena, who had 900 yards and was an all ACC conference selection last year for Syracuse. He's, of course, made his way to Penn State. I think the expectations here can be tempered, but in a good way. And I don't need him to be good, but definitely has to be someone that stays on the field, because this tight end room is not what it has been in the last couple of years for Utah. Like, he's got to be a reliable target for Devin Dampier in at least 10 games, if not all 12, for Utah to push for a Big 12 championship.
I agree with that full-heartedly. I do feel like they need him to stay healthy, and they need him to produce. He cannot be what he's been throughout his career. As excited as we are about Merriweather, he has less than 500 collegiate receiving yards over his 3 seasons. I think he would have had more last year had he stayed healthy with Cal. He did have a good game against Wake Forest at the end of the year, caught a touchdown, around 45, 50 yards, but Utah needs more than that. They will, and teams are going to pack the box on this Utah team. A lot of early mock drafts have Utah having 2 first-round offensive linemen next year. Devin Dampier led the country in yards per carry last year as a quarterback. Wayshawn Parker, one of the best freshman backs in the country a year ago. Teams are going to pack the box. So can you win one-on-one on the outside? Merriweather's a guy who's proven capable of doing that. He was tracked last year as running over 20 miles per hour in a game too. So a guy who has the speed, can separate deep a little bit too. Big catch radius. We're talking about a guy who was a 4-star. So the talent is in there. Can he maximize it at Utah? And it is interesting when you mention like the managing expectations, because Utah does need him to be really good, because he's not in a pass-happy offense where it's like, oh, you're going to constantly be force-fed the ball. It's okay if there are drives where he's not as impactful as others, but there are Utah fans that are taking the hype a little out of proportion, because there is a reason he's already on his 3rd team. I do feel like, even if I do think he's moving up from Cal to Utah. Sorry, Cal fans, but I do feel like this is really good for Utah. It's just one of the another ones where last year Utah had a Damian Alford from Syracuse. He averaged 19 yards per catch last year. Or with Syracuse. With Utah, he didn't do anything. He threw an interception. Like, he didn't catch a single pass. So that's the other part that just makes me a little nervous.
Wait. Back up. He what, an interception?
He threw an interception. He threw an interception. They put him in the game.
The receiver.
Crazy type play. Yes, crazy type play. They threw him in the game. They threw it to him, or he might have just taken a snap. I can't remember. But either way, they threw it like right down to him. Then he threw an interception. This is a guy who averaged 600 yards at Syracuse, and then he comes to Utah and doesn't do anything. So Utah's history with transfer portal receivers, once again, not great.
How do they make it different here? And go beyond JT, go deeper than don't make him a secondary quarterback option.
I think what's encouraging is it's a new offensive coordinator. It is Jason Beck. It's a guy who last year, a couple of those receivers at New Mexico, even though the focus was Dampier and the run game, still had success, had over 700 yards receiving. The fact that he was leaving Cal, I mentioned, I think this is a step up for him. But the fact that he's leaving Devin Brown, some of the other things that Cal has going on to come to Utah's offense shows me that he's sold on Jason Beck's vision. And I think that's where the hope comes from, is that it is a new offensive coordinator. If it was a new offensive coordinator, we'd just be talking ourselves into the same thing, that this year it'll finally be different. And in a way we are again, but we have a reason to be, because last year, this offensive coordinator and this offense led by Devin Dampier was 4th in the country in yards per game. Are they going to be that in the Big 12? I don't think so, but I do expect this offense to make a massive leap forward when you look at the talent that they are assembling on that side of the ball. I don't see how they're worst, and especially because we talk, Spencer. I mean, you talk about all the time. What's the most important position on the field? Quarterback. I don't see how Utah got worst at quarterback. If you want to say it's not going to be great, like CBS had a list where Devin Dampier was a top 10 guy. If you don't think he's going to be that next year,
top 10 in the country?
They said top 10 in the country. If you don't think he's going to be that next year, that's okay. But I have a hard time believing, I don't want to be mean to Isaac Wilson, but like wherever he lands, he's going to be better than what Isaac Wilson was last year. So I think that's where the encouraging signs come in. It feels like this is an offense that is set to maximize its position players better. And Jason Beck just comes with a fresher approach than Andy Ludwig, who his style, I just think it kind of faded out. It had its time, 2 Pac-12 titles. We're grateful for that. But the change in offensive coordinator leaves me very optimistic that guys like Mayweather will be maximized in Salt Lake City.
How has he supported the other receivers in the room, the tight ends, which has been such a huge position for the Utah passing game in recent years with Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keithy? Those guys aren't walking through the door anymore. So how do you support, a guy that's capable of being a number one option, but as we mentioned, hasn't been called upon to do that yet and might be someone who you want to give a little bit of a grace period to before you're saying, hey, we're going to give you 12 targets a game. We need you to haul in 8 of them for 80-plus yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. Real quick, Brant Keithy actually still without an NFL home. That's one of the, if you just look back at what he was doing in college.
That's got to be injury driven.
I think so. It's just one of those crazy things when you look at how good he was going back to 2019, but that's just how crazy, how long he's been in college. Anyways, Utah, other pass catchers. Well, I will also say they just lost one of their top tight ends. Landon King went to Duke, unfortunately. So that's where you take a little bit of a hit in the tight end room. Tight end room is probably not the best, but this offense does maximize more on those receivers. I mentioned Otto Tia a little bit earlier. I didn't love what we heard in spring ball, but I want to give him more time. That is a guy who had over 400 yards last year with Utah State, played one of his best games against Utah. We know how good those Utah DBs can be. So he's a guy I'm looking to see emerge. Outside of that, you got Larry Simmons from Southern Mississippi. He had over 400 yards. You got Justin Stevenson, who had over 200 yards at Wyoming. You have Ryan Davis, who I am more excited. Ryan Davis is a guy I'm excited about. He had the connection last year with Dampier at New Mexico. So now he comes to Salt Lake City. I think that's a nice get. Creed Whitmore, an SEC transfer that Utah brings in. It's a lot of unknown and question marks. And I think one of the things that gets me really excited about Merriweather is he is a guy who has won against P4 cornerbacks consistently. Not a lot of these other guys we can say that about, but Merriweather's a guy. He's caught balls against Ohio State back when he was on Notre Dame. So he's done that. Can he stay healthy and be even more consistent? I believe there's reason to believe he can, especially if he's able to stay healthy and be maximized here. He's the most likely guy in this room to lead Utah in receiving yards. And outside of that, it's unlikely and unknown candidates who are going to step up. Wide receiver, not going to be the strength of this team in Salt Lake City, but there's a lot of reason to believe that Merriweather can be a bright spot on the offense.
Do you think he's the most important transfer on the team for Utah now, winter or spring cycle?
I can't put him past Devin Dampier. If that's I think Devin Dampier has to be.
Oh yeah, I always kind of put the quarterbacks in their own conversation subconsciously. I'm like, if you get past the quarterback.
I think he's second, because if you say, Sean Parker was a great get. Yeah, but the offensive line's so good. I still think they're okay there. Utah actually also added a running back, so still doing work in the transfer portal. We're not done building this thing out in Salt Lake City.
No, you're never done. When are you ever done? I mean, Kyle Whittingham might be done after this season, but hey, we don't know. We don't know. That's a topic for another day. JT Wistrcill, Locked on Utes. Great as always. The best quarterback in the country is coming to an SEC school near you, Georgia, and all the other SEC fans, they're not going to like that very much. First, this episode brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, marketing. It's all there. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It's fast and easy hiring. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple candidates wanting to get your job, you'll have them to choose from, and now you can make your business better. That is why you should check out Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Check them out at Upwork.com. So Jared Curtis is a Georgia Bulldog. This is a massive get for Kirby Smart and company, who pick up the number one quarterback, according to 24/7 Sports and other services as well, and Spencer's recruiting service, for whatever that's worth. Jared Curtis is my favorite quarterback in this cycle. It was down to Georgia and Oregon. It had been that way for months at this point. This is one of the most high-profile recruitments of this upcoming 2026 recruiting class that will continue to build itself out for everybody in the coming months. And certainly I'll talk about it plenty here on the show. But this is a big piece for Georgia for a couple of reasons. First of all, the statement you make. Do you know the last time that Georgia went out and pulled the number one quarterback in the cycle? Matthew Stafford. It worked out pretty well. They were good. Stafford is still playing in the NFL. Reason number two, Jared Curtis is somebody that I think could start as a true freshman. I don't know that that's the best course of action. He does not play against the highest level of competition. He's a Tennessee native. They've got Faison Brandon, Tennessee, that is, in the class of 26, so they weren't really after him. That's why it was an Oregon and Georgia race. And so he's someone that I think might need a year of adjustment, but by the time he is starting for Georgia, if he's not doing so as a true freshman, he's the kind of prospect, he's the kind of guy who's going to make people ask questions, who's going to play in a spring game next year, I would think, and will make fans go, ooh, and ah, and oh my gosh, when is he getting on the field? So if a guy in front of him struggles, Gunnar Stockton per se, for example, I guess is the better phrase in there, but if that situation arises, he's someone that makes it very easy to picture, oh, here's how he becomes a starting quarterback. Oh, here's how he becomes a star. And here's the interesting thing. Gunnar Stockton, he can move. It's not a feature of his game. Jared Curtis, I compare him to Josh Allen. I've done so for months. He is 6'4", 220 pounds. I don't care who you're playing against in high school. I don't care how much development you might need. And by the way, he's the number one quarterback in the class of 2026 for a reason. That's Bryce Underwood in the 2025 class. He's at Michigan. He's the favorite, last I had heard, to start for the Wolverines come this fall. They play Oklahoma in week 2. Just throwing that out there. But Curtis is someone that's certainly capable of being ready. But you don't see guys like this come around very often. Every class, of course, has a number one quarterback. Every class has a guy who you think comes in and starts as a true freshman. Last year it was Dylan Raiola. This year it might be Bryce Underwood. Next year it could be Jared Curtis. You saw Trevor Lawrence take over in his freshman season back in 2018. It's hard, but not unprecedented. Curtis is somebody that has more potential than any Georgia quarterback we've seen in the last several years. Now think about what Georgia has done since let's just say 2018 in the national championship game. They lose to Alabama. What have they done since then? Oh, that's right. They've won SEC championships. They have won 2 national championships in that time. Stetson Bennett won 2 national championships. Stetson Bennett went out there and won it twice. I mean, if they can win a national championship, which they obviously can, with Stetson Bennett back there, what can they do with Jared Curtis? Yeah, this should scare the rest of the SEC because he has the ability to be a top 10 pick at quarterback in the NFL draft. When was the last time you said that about a Georgia quarterback? I legitimately don't know. It might have been Matthew Stafford, who was the number 1 overall pick to the Lions in 2009. That might have been the last time. I'd have to really rack my brain and go through the memory banks. But Curtis is a mega talent. He can move. When you watch his highlight reel, which you should if you haven't, you will see the Josh Allen comparison that I give him, not just because he is big, he is mobile, he can run through you, he can run around you, he can run by you, but this is a guy who can make throws on the run. He's got the Josh Allen release. He's got that little just kind of flick, and you go, oh, wait, that's a bigger arm than a flick of the wrist ordinarily would generate. So huge pickup here for Georgia, huge. And now the Bulldogs go after the number 1 offensive tackle in the cycle next on the recruiting trail in Jackson Cantwell, who is also considering Oregon amongst other places. So Kirby Smart throwing just a couple of jabs at his former defensive coordinator, Dan Lanning. But this is just such a massive pickup for the Bulldogs. The statement it makes, the outlook for the program. I would think Gunnar Stockton winds up being the guy for Georgia this year. Going into 2026, that could be a heck of a lot more of a competitive quarterback battle, because Jared Curtis is that sort of talent. Jared Curtis is that sort of name that's just going to generate buzz. Not just starting here. The buzz has been going on for a while. It will continue. By the time he sets foot onto a college football field, a healthy number, not just of people that listen to or watch this show, a healthy number of college football fans will know his name. And, oh, that's the guy that chose Georgia. Oh, that's the guy that made that throw in the spring game. Yeah, all that with Jared Curtis. That's on the way. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.